This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Go to our website at wdtatpodcast.com and click on support to learn how you can be part of this effort to learn how to have better conversations, increase compassion, and build bridges, not walls. You can make a one-time donation or become a patron for as little as $1 a month and receive patron-only benefits. Thanks to all of our patrons at any level for your support. You are what makes this happen and what makes this possible. Thank you. Now let's get into the interview. In this interview, we go live. Hey, it's We Don't Talk About That Live. Thanks for coming. I did bring the llama energy, so I'm ready. Thanks for joining me in this experiment. I don't know what's going to happen. I hope it's working. I think it is, and we're just going to see what happens and talk about some stuff, and yeah, so enjoy. Welcome to the podcast where we talk about things we're not supposed to, learn how to talk about hard things, and talk to people about what makes them different. This is the We Don't Talk About That with Lucas Land podcast, where we do talk about that with me, Lucas Land.
It's never the right place or time. It's imperceptible to the eye. It's never the right place or time. It's imperceptible to the eye. It's never the right place or time.
All right, well, welcome everyone to We Don't Talk About That Live, an experiment in times of quarantine. Speaking of quarantine, I just want to make sure everybody knows that I'm being safe on this podcast and making sure I'm protecting you all as well. So I've got my face mask, if I can get it on properly. Let's see here. There's some debate about who exactly this face is. It really gives me some good Goonies ears there. One guess is Jeff Goldblum. So you can put it down in the comments what you think, whose face this is. Who does this look like? Yeah, and this way I won't spread it to you. I won't get it on the mic here or anything like that. So first, I just wanted to say welcome. And if you're watching, let me know, how you're feeling about quarantine, COVID-19, shelter in place, and all that sort of stuff. I have planned to talk a little bit about what that's like for me here in Bolivia a little later on. But really, I don't need this to protect you, so I'll set that aside. You don't have to look at that the whole time. Yeah, so we're all stuck at home, and just as you are, and so I thought this would be a good time to try an experiment. I've never done this before. It's pretty fun, so we'll see how it goes. Please send me your questions in the chat and comments. Let me know you're there. Just say hi, wave, whatever. Yeah. So I wanted to do a little bit of podcast housekeeping. When I started the podcast September of last year, my intention was to do an episode every other week or twice a month, something along those lines, trying not to overwhelm myself and my schedule like a lot of podcasters, it's not my full-time job, and have a full-time job and a family and all that kind of stuff. So, and then I had so many interviews lined up. It was really fun. I enjoyed all the topics, and I found, kind of a rhythm and was doing really well. And so I wanted to keep releasing episodes. And so I decided to go ahead and up my schedule and release every week, which has been fine. And I've been able to have enough episodes that I can take a week or two off, and it's not a big deal. But recently, just so you're aware, I decided to switch to every other week. Just partly because of everything that's going on, also just for sustainability for me to be able to keep doing this podcast, which I think is great. I learn something every time I do an episode and talk to all of the amazing people I'm lucky enough to be connected to. So all that's great. So I want to keep doing it, but I also want to make sure I can keep doing it for the long haul. So we switched to every other week. And I'm thinking about fun things like this to do, maybe on off weeks with people. And if it's a regular thing or something, maybe we can have specific topics and people can send in, you would know ahead of time, or who knows what. So that might give me some room to experiment with some other things. Also, could add some Patreon benefits if you're a patron of the podcast. Might be able to, in those off weeks, add some more benefits for you guys, because it really helps make it possible and make it something that I can keep doing. So. Also wanted to let everybody know about some of the upcoming episodes, topics and things that are coming up that I'm really excited about. Next week, releasing on Monday my interview with my friend Cheryl Lung about cross-cultural life and love. So she is part of a multicultural family, and she gets to tell her story about falling in love and all of the ups and downs of cross-cultural relationships and that living and all that kind of stuff. It's also very timely because of everything happening with COVID-19 and some of the racist and xenophobic things that have happened towards Asian Americans. And so I added a little intro just kind of mentioning that. So look for that to come out on Monday. And then what else do I have coming up? I have a guy from Australia who's going to do a 2-part episode series with me on spiral dynamics. I'm not going to go into it. He does a really great job of breaking it down and explaining spiral dynamics very clearly and very well. So I'm going to leave it to him to explain all of that. But spiral dynamics is a really helpful tool, I think, for thinking about why we're different, how we're different, and looking at it a little differently than other systems that I've seen in the past. And so I find it very, very helpful tool for thinking about why we have the conflicts we do, why we tend to get polarized, and thinking about the value systems that are operating in different people in different ways and things like that. Anyways, I'm really excited to share that because I have found spiral dynamics super helpful. And I have another interview with an author who wrote a book about spiral dynamics as well, called The Change Code, down the road as well. What else? I really wanted to talk to someone from my hometown, and I got my friend Mary Beth Kendrick to talk to me about a lot of things. The main idea was just to talk about coming from the same small town and turning out different, and why were we different? What's that all about? And so that was really a fun interview with her as well. So you can look forward to that. Also talked to my friend Musaki about race. She's an African-American woman, mom, living in New York City, but she's kind of from all over the place, and had a very good, honest conversation about race with her, and that was really fun. And then I have some lined up, some interviews on homelessness, mental health, and some other topics. So, so I'm really excited that there's tons to talk about and a lot of good things in the works and things that should be coming out fairly soon. So, something for you all to look forward to. One of the things that I have felt, and talking to other listeners, patrons, as well, guests, even friends, about the podcast, one area that I have not tackled, partly I think because it's a scary idea. It's easy to talking about things. It's a lot harder to actually have that conversation in front of whoever listens to it. And so I've wanted to have difficult conversations as like a way to model what we're talking about on the podcast, maybe a way of using tools or thinking about how it works out in real life. Like when two people are having a conversation, what does it really look like? What really happens when it gets down to, okay, we really don't agree about this. How do we talk about it and make points and disagree well and have a conversation that really works well and do it like practically, like showing it to other people, I guess, And so I worked on some ideas for a format for that to help make it possible to do. And I have recorded one episode with my friend Gary Goodson, who was on episode 9. Gary and I go way back, and we have had lots of conversations about things we disagree about. So I thought it was a safe choice for my like first experiment with this new format. So basically the idea is with each guest that is going to have like a live disagreement with me, or it could be maybe I'm the mediator and there's two other people disagreeing about a topic, something along those lines. I'm still figuring it out. We would have certain ground rules for all the conversations, just to make sure that it's a good, safe, and that we're all kind of on the same page about the conversation, to help us. I mean, I think a lot of us have these same kind of ground rules for conversations that we have online with our peers or with different people, but we don't always follow them. Let's be honest, right? Like when you really get into it and you think of a real good zinger, like you're just gonna do it. You're gonna like try to win the conversation instead. So setting some ground rules, and then basically having 30 minutes, about half of the podcast, be just having the conversation, going back and forth, trying to not let one person dominate, about 5 minutes each at a time, and then getting to a stopping point, and then taking kind of a breather, a little break, and then reflecting on what just happened, like reflecting on how it went, what things went well, what things didn't go well, what was really hard, what made the conversation really easy, things that we maybe avoided saying that we wish that we did say, or things that we did say in the conversation that maybe we wish that we didn't say, So anyways, I'm hoping to add that to the rotation as one of the episodes that we do, as a way of really putting feet to all of the things that we're talking about in terms of how to have these kinds of conversations and how to talk about these different hard topics, and sometimes with difficult people too, all of that sort of stuff. Anyways, so that is the housekeeping I had. No questions yet. Hi, Richie and Naomi, for stopping in. Hi, Mom. So I would like to also share, because we're all experiencing quarantine in different ways all over the world. I wanted to share what it's like for me right now in Bolivia, since I'm in a different part of the world than most of my listeners. If I look at my statistics, mostly North Americans. I'm from North America, so that makes total sense. So it might be interesting for folks to hear what it's like here. We were actually on vacation in La Paz with my family, March 7th through the 14th. And during that week, we did see reports of the first cases of COVID-19 in Bolivia. And of course, we were paying a lot of attention to the news. And then I started feeling sick. This has been a very bad year for dengue fever in Bolivia. And my wife had dengue prior to our vacation. She'd recovered and felt up to traveling and the high altitude and everything. And the vacation actually was glorious. It was incredible to see La Paz and so many of the places around La Paz. So it turned out, I wasn't sure at the time until later, but it turned out I had also ended up getting dengue as well. But we did travel home. There were already some news reports that the country was going to be beginning to shut down. And then when we got home to Santa Cruz, we basically quarantined ourselves and didn't go leave the house. We didn't. I think there were 1 or 2 trips to the grocery store, but already decided just to be safe that we were quarantining and staying away from other people and trying to make sure we were doing our part to not spread anything and keep people safe. And then it was announced that the country was going to implement a quarantine. So there were some stages, but basically right now, all international flights and domestic flights are grounded. There's also no ground transportation, and all of the borders in Bolivia are currently closed. So, I guess if you think too much about it, it feels kind of crazy. Like we are technically stuck here right now until this kind of blows over. But we also are very comfortable. We have our house and people, lots of resources, and we feel very comfortable in this country. The quarantine here is very strict. There's no cars allowed to be driven in the country except for those that are supplying grocery stores and pharmacies, supplies, things like that. I think for driving, there's a 2,000 Boliviano fine, which would be a little over $200, I think. So that's a pretty huge fine, and 8 hours of jail time. So we are also supposed to shelter in place in our houses, which in Bolivia means you are not allowed to leave your house. One person at a time can leave the house to get groceries, go to the pharmacy, things like that. But it has to be on certain days, and that is divided up from Monday to Friday based on your identity number for your Bolivian identity card. So, yeah, it's pretty intense and pretty crazy. We have been fine. We've been entertaining ourselves. I'd love to hear what other people are doing. You can share in the chat what you've been doing to entertain yourselves and stay busy. Yeah, our kids aren't in school either. School was canceled. We actually took our vacation not on a holiday, so we were missing school already, and then the kids found out they got off of school for now until April 15th, when the quarantine is scheduled to last. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, so I guess that's about it for quarantine. We've been finding ways to entertain ourselves, taking turns as a family, different members of the family have a turn to decide things that we're going to do that they want to do together as a family. So we have very good internet access, so people are very entertained with all that the internet has to offer. God bless the internet. And people have also chosen something. So there was a movie night one night. Let's see, we've played some card games. What else have we done? I'm not remembering at the moment, but I see Steve Swanson saying he's been watching Clone Wars, board games, doing a lot of baking. And he's a teacher, so he's been teaching online and rewatching New Girl. Ooh, I don't think I ever finished New Girl. Anyways, I've been watching a lot of series too, and I'm trying to watch some old movies, which has been really fun. I just finished Rear Window, which is an Alfred Hitchcock movie with James Stewart, which most people know from It's a Wonderful Life, but I also watched Vertigo not that long ago, and it's kind of fun to see him in different roles. Anyways, it's a little bit of a tangent there. And someone else, Naomi, said she's been playing a lot of darts and jigsaw puzzles. So yeah, we've been doing jigsaw puzzles too. So I have also really enjoyed all of the things that people have been offering online. For me, especially the Austin City Limits series. People offered the last two seasons. I think normally it's only like so many episodes of Austin City Limits that you can watch online. And now you can watch the last two seasons, which include some of my favorites, which are like St. Vincent, Brandi Carlile, which just killed me. Billie Eilish has one on there that I haven't watched yet, but it's really good. So music has been good. I watched the Indigo Girls when they were on Facebook and things like that. So I've really been thankful for the arts. For me personally, playing music is always very life-giving and helps me kind of focus or center myself or feel kind of like all is right with the world. So that's been good. My daughter and wife have been also doing a lot of watercolor, which is cool. And I'll post a picture. They've been starting to make a wall now of the art that they've been making doing watercolor, which has been really cool to see. So yeah, John Prine is also one of the Austin City Limits. Steve is mentioning that. So that I haven't watched that one yet, but he's fantastic. So yeah, I think that's about it for quarantine. I have a few more things to say at the end with the two things that I like to end the episodes with. But so feel free to keep adding stuff to the chat, add questions, or yeah, anything that you guys want to know more about or have questions about, things you want to see on the podcast or topics for episodes, hit me with whatever. And I'll just try and grab those as they come through the chat. Yeah, really all that I had left were the last two things that normally, and then maybe people can share in the chat too, things that they would recommend for going out and going deeper. So normally in episodes, it's usually not me by myself. In fact, I guess this is the first episode not scripted that I'm kind of done by myself. And Steve just asked, what aren't you talking about right now? That's a really good question. I that is a question that I do counseling for a lot of reasons. There's tons of reasons to do counseling, and I highly recommend counseling. Normalizing is something that we like to do on the podcast, and counseling is one of those things that if you haven't done it before, maybe feels kind of intimidating and scary, but counseling is great. And my counselor, when I sign up for a session has one of the questions that she always asks is, what is it that you're not willing to bring up? And I always find that's a really hard question. There are some times where, like, I know exactly the thing I'm not willing to bring up, or I don't want to talk about maybe. And then there are other times where I feel like, well, I'm not sure. Maybe there's nothing. So I don't know if there's anything I'm not talking about right now. I'm going to come back to that, see if something else comes up, because that's a good question. Marty asked if I've seen Hitchcock's The Birds, which I have not, but I plan on watching more of the Hitchcock movies. What I did was I went through AFI's like top 100 films of all time, and have been trying to go through that list. And The Birds, I'm pretty sure, is not on that list. There's probably 4 or 5 Hitchcock movies on that list, but there's like 50 Hitchcock movies, and I'm sure they're all pretty good. So yeah, hoping to watch that too. So coming back to going out and going deeper. So normally on episodes, I have a conversation with somebody about a topic, and, we get kind of to the end, and I like having a way to wrap up the episode, but also I really want to leave people with resources, things that they can use, ideas for how to put things into action, and then also ways that they can learn more or go deeper or find out more about the topic that we've been talking about. And I usually answer the question and then also have my guest answer the question. And that usually gives us a lot of good things to add to the show notes. I love show notes, and I love podcasts that have really good show notes. There are several podcasts I listen to that I will go back to find links or things that they've mentioned that I remember, it was in this one episode. And I just think show notes are a really fantastic resource. So I like to have good notes and links for you guys to find the things that we've been talking about. So Richie has a thought that he's mentioning, that it would be beneficial when discussing things that we don't talk about, that whoever is speaking should articulate their objective and why they think there would be objections to that objective. Or I guess another way to say it would be like almost like what kind of their side is, and then maybe what people would object to about their side. When I was talking before about that new format, one of my very, very first episodes was with a pastor friend of mine who went to the same seminary as me, Reverend Sam Doyle, who's pastor of Greater New Light Baptist Church in Waco, Texas. And I really, from the beginning, have wanted to do this idea. And I did try with him, and he was great. I think we probably did the best we could. And I had kind of a little gimmick to help us maybe do a little bit of kind of what Richie is suggesting, where I know that we're on different sides of the LGBTQ question, I guess, or topic, particularly related to like church and faith and that sort of thing. And so what I tried to do is say, well, let's switch sides where I attempt to articulate your position, and then you take your turn and articulate my position, and then we'll kind of see, did we do a good job, as a way of not just starting from, here's why I'm right, maybe. So that's kind of a little bit what Richie is saying, and I hope that is somewhat incorporated into these conversations that we do, where we're really trying to get into the nitty gritty and have those hard conversations. I think it is really helpful for people to be able to articulate the other side of an argument and understand it in a way that you don't have to agree with, but you are able to articulate it and are able to, in some sense, kind of understand and empathize with why people have those views on something. And it gives you a better ability, I think, to be able to listen when people are sharing the other side, and then be able to hopefully reflect back, and also articulating it to somebody is very helpful for them to know that they're heard and understood, and then they're more likely to probably listen to you. So yeah, those are good ideas. All right, well, I'm going to keep going with going out and going deeper, and you are all welcome to share links or little notes or things in the chat, and I can add some of those to the show notes as well. But here are some of mine. So for going out, I'm going to suggest that you don't, right? Because right now we're shelter in place, and we need to stay at home. It's important. It's a way that we can take care of others. We might not be high risk, but we want to take care of those that might be high risk. And I mean, I've seen lots of memes about, hey, this is the first time staying home is like the responsible thing to do. So that's pretty cool. Like, you get to just stay home. And I know people are working from home, and there's a lot of people who that's not an option to just stay home. But as much as possible, the going out for this episode would be don't. But what do you do instead, right? If there's not an action that's going out of your house, what do you do? I have done a lot to connect with people online. We did a Facebook Live as a family, which was really fun, and we got to talk about different other aspects of life in Bolivia and answer people's questions about Bolivia, and that was really cool. I can share a link to that, and I could probably add it to the Facebook or whatever for the podcast. If you have kids that are school age, might be a cool video for them to listen to. It's a little less than an hour, right around an hour. But my kids participated, and they talked about different things that they are doing and what it's like living in Bolivia and things like that. So doing different things like this, Facebook Live to connect with people. I've also started using Marco Polo more, which is a fun app if you haven't tried it. You can send videos. You don't have to do a video chat. You can like record a video and then send it, and then the person watches it when they can, and then they can send you a video back, and it has all, like little unicorns and weird effects and things that you can add to it. So it's kind of fun. You can play around with it. But a lot of people are starting to use that. We use WhatsApp, like a lot of international folks. So those are a couple of things we've been doing to connect with other people. Another thing related to this, I wrote down, check on your people. We've tried to connect more with maybe folks that we haven't talked to as much in the past, and just checking in on how people are doing and how things are going. A lot of people are looking for more connection and things to do and distract them. So that's another aspect of that. Marty says a lot of my topics for the podcast are educational about things that she's not familiar with. Not knowing about it makes it misunderstood or unknown, and the podcast helps her learn and grow areas she's unfamiliar with. Cool. And then she wants to access the show notes. Yeah, the show notes are on the website. Well, wherever you're listening to the podcast, there should be show notes, except in Patreon. Marty my mom might be listening in Patreon to early episodes when they're released. And I don't put all of the show notes there, but you can go to the website, wdtatpodcast.com, and I have show notes for every episode there that has links and information. And eventually I'd like to do transcriptions, but that's been a little bit tricky, and I'm a one-person operation here. So, okay, so check on your people, connect, find ways. We are very lucky to live in the age of the internet where we can do these kinds of things. That's pretty amazing. Have a schedule and routine. When I got sick at the end of our vacation with dengue fever, I had fever for like 4 days, and then I had kind of a rash, and I was just exhausted. And, they say it takes 7 to 10 days really to get through dengue. And so that was the start really of my quarantine. And when you're sick or things like that, my schedule was completely out the window. So, I slept all day or watched movies or whatever. And then coming out of that, I just felt like a little bit out of sorts, right? Because now all of a sudden we were in a quarantine. And what's my schedule? I didn't have work like I normally have. I didn't have the normal things that sort of organize my day for me. And so at first I kind of was just like, well, whatever, like I just felt really, well, it doesn't matter. We're in quarantine. I just, sleep late and watch these shows or do whatever, because what else am I going to do if I didn't have a reason or something else organizing my day? And eventually, that can get depressing, and I felt pretty down a few days where I was just like, oh, this is not fun. This is not good. I need to figure this out. So yeah, I kind of got back to my somewhat normal routine. In the mornings, even coming down to the center where I work and using my desk there really helped me get back in the mindset of having a little bit of a routine and having a little bit more structure to my day. So that's been good. And then having some projects like figuring out how to do a live stream of the podcast has been really fun. For those nerds who might be interested, I'm using OBS Studio to stream to YouTube, and it's been fun. Even today, figuring out how to add in music and graphics and stuff like that too. So finding projects for me is really helpful. Marty asked what I do to figure out what day of the week it is. Yeah, I have lost days. Last week, it was this week. This week in particular, there were a few times where I thought it was the 24th or no, I saw that it was the 25th, and I said, well, what happened to the 24th? I don't remember that day happening. So yeah, the days do blur together. Another aspect of the quarantine here is that Saturday and Sundays, everything is shut down. There's no groceries, no pharmacy, nobody is to leave their house. And so that has also helped structure a little bit for me, because I have to know what days we are going to the grocery store and thinking about what days we are not able to make sure that we, get all of that kind of straightened out. So, I think a lot of people have said that, but I do think it's really good advice, and it was very helpful to me, and keeping a routine even when, there's less of a reason to maybe or whatever. So have a schedule, have a routine. And then another thing that I have found very helpful for checking in with people, I was listening to a podcast today where they were talking about just asking people, sometimes it's hard to know when you're talking to maybe friends or coworkers or different people. You want to check in on them, but you don't want to be like, hey, are you depressed? And, right? All those things that we don't talk about, right? And maybe you're just not comfortable talking to them. So you could, just say, hey, what did you eat today? Or, what did you do? Or, what did your kids do, or something, finding something that something mundane that you can ask to start with. But my wife found a list of questions for checking in, maybe with people that you're closer to, your family, your immediate family, your extended family, that we have started doing in the mornings as a way for us to check in with each other. And it's just questions. I think there's 6 questions. What am I grateful for today? So what happened? Okay, I think we had a little bit of a connection issue for a second there, but it looks like it's all okay now, hopefully. So what am I grateful for? Also, who am I checking in on or connecting with today? So there's folks maybe in your life you need to check in and make sure you're checking in with them regularly. And maybe there's folks that you need to connect with, or, connection's important. Especially for me, I know as a kind of borderline extrovert, connecting with people outside of my family. So finding ways like this, Facebook Live, chatting, different things like that to connect with people. What expectations of, quote, normal am I letting go of today? That one sometimes is hard to answer every day lately, but it is also helpful to think, what expectations do I have that maybe I need to let go of during this time? There was a meme that I shared recently about all that parents are being asked to do and how kind of overwhelming that can be for a lot of people. So lowering your expectations about being a teacher, going to work, being a parent, and all of that stuff, and say, hey, like that's really more than you can ask, and adjusting your expectations might be better. It's not that you don't expect good things, but just doing something fun with your kids and connecting is maybe more important than homework sometimes, right? Like for all of our sanity. So that's just a helpful thing. So how am I getting outside today? Some of these are harder for me. I like doing projects. I like working on things that have more to do with ideas. And so a lot of times I don't get outside. I'm very lucky that we live where we have lots of room. We have a basketball court. And so I need to take advantage of that. So that's a good reminder. How am I moving my body today? Another aspect that I tend to let go, and I like having projects and other stuff to do, and I forget about moving my body and doing things to keep exercise and healthy and things like that. So those are good reminders. And then the last one, what beauty am I either creating, cultivating, or inviting in today? And there's so many different things. I was editing an interview with Monica Bergeau for the podcast today, where she was talking about the little things that we can do to make a difference in the world. And I think it's the same with beauty. We love the artists that create the things that just like open us up and make us feel amazing feelings. But we also have lots of small acts of beauty every day. And so I think it's great to also remind ourselves that when we play with our kids, or when we have a good conversation, or reach out to somebody, or connect and have a good moment, or say a kind word to somebody, whatever it is, like those are moments of beauty too, and those are things that we're adding to the world. Singing a song, no matter what you sound like or whatever. I don't know. There's so many things, and so I think it's a good exercise to say, I'm also every day creating beauty and finding ways to create it, invite it, and participate in it, and that helps me stay healthier as well. Anyway, so those are all going out things. If anybody else has things that have helped you sort of stay connected when you're stuck at home or things like that, you can share those in the chat and I'll add them. Also, going deeper. So I'm trying not to feel bad that I'm not reading as much as I would like to. I'm watching a lot more stuff than I am reading. But it is a chance, if you want to read some more books or go deeper on lots of different things in your own life, this is a great chance that you can do that. You can, obviously, if you haven't listened to all of the episodes, go back and listen to previous episodes and catch up on We Don't Talk About That. Would love that. But also, I have a few recommendations that I have found really helpful. The first two are a couple of podcasts. Science Versus is a podcast from Gimlet Media, and it takes on different topics and kind of looks at what does the science say about it. So what do we know? What do we not know? What are the claims that are made? So there was an episode about essential oils. There was an episode on, I'm not remembering right now, all kinds of stuff. Climate change, I think they had one on climate change, I'm sure. But recently, they have had a number of episodes on topics related to COVID-19. So they have interviewed experts and talk. So the one I listened to most recently was about this question about chloroquine. I think that's what it's called. It's an anti-malarial drug that's used often in low dosages, I believe. And a lot of news has come out. I think Trump mentioned something about it being this, miracle drug, maybe. I'm not remembering all the details. But, she really breaks down, well, what do we know about it? And so far, what's being done to study it, and then what do we not know about it? And for those that hadn't heard, there was a story about a couple, I think it was an older couple, who heard about this drug and then found that they had some kind of like aquarium cleaner or something that had this chemical in it. And so they took the cleaner chemical to try and prevent COVID-19. And I believe the husband died, and I think the wife made it, survived, but it was very dangerous what they did, and so she talks about that as well. But I just find it really helpful to break down some of the things, like what we do know, what we don't know. They're usually really good about saying it very clearly so that you can really understand, and then they give a wrap up at the end. Okay, well here's what we've figured out, based on this episode or whatever. So, and they have a number of episodes on coronavirus and COVID-19. The other one that's way more just fun and entertaining is a podcast that Kumail Nanjiani and Emily V. Gordon have started. That's just really for this time that we're all kind of stuck inside, sheltering in place. It's called Staying In with Emily and Kumail. And they have 2 episodes out right now. And they're also donating all of the proceeds. They have some sponsors. And they're pretty well-known writers and comedians. So they're probably getting some money from this. But they're donating everything to charities. And they break down, I think it's 3 different ones, like food banks to help people, the workers that are the most affected, and helping medical workers that are kind of on the front line, something along those lines. Anyways, but it's basically just them talking about being stuck at home and how they both kind of live and they both kind of work at home already, and so. But they're also just really funny people, and so it's really entertaining. There is some swearing. It's not too inappropriate, but just to give you a heads up. So that's a really good one. And then the last thing I'll recommend for going deeper on coronavirus is the News Literacy Project has a page on coronavirus, which I shared this past week, yesterday, I think, on misinformation. And so that site is amazing, and they have lots of great tips and tricks on how to read the news more carefully, how to know when something is fake, and they kind of break down some viral memes or pictures or rumors that kind of get passed around, and how you know that that's not real, and things that you can do to kind of be skeptical and read the news more carefully. And so they also have a coronavirus page that has some breakdown of some of the misinformation that's out there. They have trusted sources, and it's things like the WHO, CDC, Johns Hopkins, places like that, that you can trust. So if you need to check, if you hear something, that's a good place to go to check on that. So, yeah. Wow. Well, thank you guys for sticking with me. This has been fun, and I'm glad I had enough to share with you guys. And thanks for asking some questions and engaging. For me, it was fun just learning how to do this and trying it out and testing it. And we'll see. Maybe we'll do it again another time. So, yeah, let's keep talking, through this stuff. It's important, I think, for some people, being stuck at home probably means not talking about what's hard about being stuck at home, right? And for other people like me, maybe what's hard is admitting that there are things that are hard for me being stuck at home. So those are important things to think about. Check on your people and tell your people to check on you. Like I said, a new episode comes out on Monday, so please check that out and give it a listen. Remember to share with your friends and all of that sort of stuff. For me, doing this podcast and connecting with lots of different people and trying to talk about things we avoid and also how we talk to each other has been a learning experience. And I have grown so much from the people I've interviewed and things that I feel like I've learned from them. And so I'm very thankful for starting this experiment and project, and that so many of you have kind of come along with me, and it's been really fun. So thanks for sticking with me, and yeah, we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us today on We Don't Talk About That with Lucas Land. If you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Help us spread the word by sharing it on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with the handle @WDTAT Podcast. You can also rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can support the podcast by visiting our website at wdtatpodcast.com and clicking on support. You can make a one-time donation or consider becoming a monthly supporter through Patreon. You'll receive bonus content and access to patron-only benefits. Thanks for your support. We would love to hear from you. Leave us a voicemail by going to our website and clicking Send Voicemail. Your voicemail could be featured in a future episode. You can also email us at wdtatpodcast@gmail.com. Many thanks to Neil Curran and Infielder for the use of their music. You can find more of their music online at infielder.bandcamp.com. A final thought from Brené Brown. The willingness to show up changes us. It makes us a little braver each time. Until next time, keep showing up and keep being brave.
What are you gonna do?